Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to this week's Visitors Edition. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. It's homecoming this week, and our visitors come to town with a 2-game winning streak. We'll hear about that and get to know this Rutgers team better through the eyes of columnist Steve Politi from the Newark Star Ledger, who covers the Scarlet Knights. First, let's roll with my view from Section 17. I think Jim Harbaugh, his staff, and the players put Penn State in the rearview mirror after Saturday. I'm sure they looked at film to see what needs to be addressed, but they won't let it linger. They just can't. They have to be ready for Rutgers on Saturday and getting this thing back on track. The same can't be said for a segment of our fan base. Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, a stool in your local pub, the numerous message boards, or just the fans you run into in everyday life, it has been kind of a nasty week. Part of that I understand. It's been a long time since our last Big Ten championship. We've endured the Rich Rod experiment and the expectation that Brady would right the ship in short order. Then, of course, all of that was washed away when Jim was hired, and the fan expectations once again went through the roof. There was patience, sort of, during the first 2 years, but in this third year, a big chunk of the fan base thought we would be back at elite status. Never mind the fact 19 of last year's players have been or are on NFL rosters right now. I'm just an old guy that does a podcast, and once upon a time, I was one of those impatient fans who expected excellence every Saturday, every season. You often read that sports is a metaphor for life, and I do believe that. One thing aging teaches you is that whether it's your marriage, your job, your health, friendships, or yes, even your favorite football team, there are bumps in the road, and it takes work. Life never goes like you want it to all the time, and you can bank on that. So patience and perseverance are required in all of those things if they are going to be satisfying and successful. I know you want Michigan football to be great again. I know you want to beat Michigan State and Ohio State again. I do too. We can't compare our football team to Alabama or that team in Columbus or even Penn State right now. Every team, every situation is different. It comes down to this for me, and I think a lot of our fans need to take a deep breath and let this sink in. Jim Harbaugh has been successful with everything and everywhere he's ever been. Is he on the right path? Yes, he is. Is it happening fast enough for some of you? No, it is not. If you don't think Jim and his staff see the big picture or realize the fan angst, I don't even know what to tell you. He does. I firmly believe he's building a team and a program designed for long-term success. And we hope a few Big Ten championships and playoff appearances along the way. It's going to take time, more time than some of us thought. I know that is not what some of you want to hear. But if Jim Harbaugh can't do it, who can? Now, that doesn't exclude him from criticism regarding play calling, game planning, or player development. He knows what needs to be done. So let's try and enjoy the journey as hard as it is sometimes. We have a game this Saturday. It's homecoming, and we are 5-2. We're gonna be just fine. And I, for one, can't wait to plop down in my seat in Section 17 this Saturday, in my rain gear again, and watch our young Wolverines keep working, because they will, and we owe them our support. Steve Politi covers Rutgers for the Newark Star Ledger. He also covers the Yankees. He's one of those hard-boiled East Coast writers that tells it like it is. But even he is amazed at the reaction of some of our fan base. Like he said, Mike, could be worse. You could be a Rutgers fan. He doesn't hold out much hope for the Jersey boys this weekend. And he joins me next on our visitors segment here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Joining us on our visitors segment this week is columnist Steve Politi from the Newark Star Ledger, back for a second year in a row. Great to have you come back, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Mike.
Well, let's talk about this Rutgers team we're going to be seeing Saturday in the Big House, Steve. Coach Chris Ash and Rutgers now have won 2 Big Ten games in a row, beat Purdue Saturday 14-12. It wasn't pretty statistically, but as Coach Ash said after the game, it's a W, and right now at this point in the program, that's a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's no question. This is a team that didn't win a Big Ten game, 16 straight Big Ten losses, didn't win one last season. Needed this little streak here, and to first of all, to beat Illinois on the road with really dominating both sides of scrimmage, running the ball really well. That was a complete victory. This one a little less aesthetic, but. They still played well defensively. They stopped them on I think 15 of 18 third and fourth downs. Got a couple of turnovers. Were very good on special teams. And again, this is a game they would have lost last year. So for this program where it is right now, to have back-to-back victories, to ensure you have more victories this year than last year, these are all important steps.
Well, Rutgers is 3-4 on the season, as we mentioned, 2 straight Big Ten wins. And they also played Washington very tough early in the season. Is the program making real strides forward this year, Steve?
I think they are on the defensive side. I think seeing signs of what Chris Ash was, a defensive coach at Ohio State, and brought a lot of those things here. And I think you're starting to see that. This is still a team that lacks an offensive identity and is very low on skill position players. They made a quarterback switch a couple weeks ago to Gio Rashino, who's junior from Michigan, who's a little bit more mobile, bigger kid, can throw the ball, but they still haven't gotten any. This is the 2 straight weeks where he didn't throw for 100 yards. So, they're still lacking that kind of ability to move the football in any consistent way. And I think that's sort of what's holding them back right now from taking a bigger step.
Jerry Kill is the 8th offensive coordinator there in 8 years, I believe.
Yeah.
What kind of a change has he brought to that offensive philosophy?
Very simple. He's just a smart guy who has been able to use what talent he has. And that's something that didn't happen last year. I know that seems like a very simple statement, but last year Rutgers wanted to run a spread offense and was essentially jamming square pegs into round holes. And then this year, Jerry Kill has pretty much been given carte blanche, so to speak, to look at what he's got and to use pieces like, Raheem Blackshear is a freshman running back who might be the most talented kid on the offense. Well, they're getting him involved any way they can, whether it's handing him the ball or throwing him little wheel route patterns for a touchdown like they did against Purdue. They're just trying. They have a couple of big tight ends, so they've brought that back into the system. He's just been very good at taking the pieces he has and finding something that makes for a passable offense.
As you mentioned, Gio Rashino got to start at quarterback. Kyle Bolin is the other quarterback that's seen significant time this season. Is it Gino's start again this week?
Gio will start again this week, correct? Yeah, he's been a little banged up, but I think they just decided that they don't want to make it a situation where they're switching up, every game or every half or whatever. So they're going to ride him for a while, and he's 2-0. I think whatever you say about statistically, Clearly, the kids, the players in the team really like him. He's a leader, he's a likable kid, and I think, they're just going to ride him out for a while.
Well, I haven't seen enough of him to form an opinion on Geno. What kind of a quarterback is he, Steve, and what kind of a style does he bring to that offense?
He's a mobile kid. He's really a physical runner. I think that gets him in trouble because he doesn't mind putting his head down and pushing for the extra yards, which has kind of led to some injury problems in the past. He's not the most accurate thrower, but he'll surprise you. He's got a big arm. It's just sometimes it's not always on target. But the bigger problem is this team, only had one catch by a wide receiver last week. 3 weeks ago had 0 catches against Ohio State by wide receivers. So they really don't have any playmakers on the outside that they've been able to target. So that limits what, there could be Brett Favre playing quarterback and they would have a hard time. So that's an obstacle that he's running into.
Well, as you might expect with a Jerry Kill-led offense, they like to run that football. It's been pretty good so far. Gus Edwards, 487 yards. Robert Martin, 278, and he's relatively healthy. And you mentioned the freshman Rasheem Blackshear. He has 216 yards. So that's not bad production from 3 guys, Steve.
No, it's not. No, and they've rotated them in. That's probably the deepest position on the team, running back. And Gus Edwards, graduate transfer from Miami, they came in and took the starting job. Most people think that he's going to have some role on the next level in the NFL. Robert Martin, I think, is the most talented runner they have, natural runner, and he's just he's the kind of guy that can't protect the football, so they have a little trouble using him more than they have. And like I said, Blackshear, Jerry Kill gave him the highest praise I've heard in a while. They think Kill thinks he's the next Ray Rice of this program, which is obviously really high praise for anybody who's at Rutgers. And he's not only one of the speedier kids on the team, but he's also, for his size, a very physical runner. So they like him a lot. The question is, are they going to be able to get enough running room against a defense like Michigan? That's going to be a big concern.
Well, you mentioned getting the ball to the wideouts, to the playmakers, has been an issue this year. You've got Janarian Grant out there, who's one big-time player, 16 grabs so far this year. Jerome Washington has 19 catches. Is Jerry Kill trying to get the ball in the hands, especially of a Janarian Grant?
Janarian's been a disappointment. He came back. I'm not sure he would have gotten drafted, but he considered going to the NFL anyway. Came back hoping to build up his resume, and really hasn't. He had an injury that kept him out a couple of weeks. But even before then, he just wasn't making the dynamic plays that we've seen from him. Really not involved enough in the offense. That's been one of those big head scratchers for us this season. Why Janarian hasn't had a big impact. And now he also left the game against Purdue. They say he's fine, but I still wonder how much of a role he'll have this week for Michigan. Washington's an interesting kid, though. He's another. He's a big target. Another NFL body at tight end, and he's, I think in a lot of ways, their most reliable passing game target right now because he can get open against, in the secondary, and he's made a couple nice plays. He's the one guy they've tried to use a lot.
Well, I know the numbers can be deceiving. Michigan's defense gets a lot of publicity, as we all know, until last week. Well, they got publicity last week, too, but the wrong kind.
Exactly. They got plenty of it from what I can tell.
Michigan's given up 130 points this year. But, when I was looking at the Rutgers stats, they're pretty close. They've only given up 165 points so far, a chunk of those against Ohio State. So at least from those numbers, the defense has not been that bad, Steve.
It is much improved, and that's despite the fact that they've lost, they lost a couple of kids. Bless Austin was their best defensive player, I thought. Cornerback, he's gone. He's been gone for the season. They lost, a key safety. They've had some injuries up front, so they've done a really nice job. And I think part of that is also that last season, and this is how you get to a score like they had against Michigan last year, which was 78-0. They were trying to be something they couldn't be on offense, and when you go 3 and out, 10 seconds, and then have a bad punt. Against Michigan, we'll get, before you know it, it's 50-0 at halftime. So I think the fact that they are a little bit better and they're trying to take time off the clock offensively, and they're better, certainly much better in special teams, has also helped keep the scores down incredibly. So that's had an impact as well. But as you said, defensively, they got exposed by a much more talented team in Ohio State, but a lot of teams have. They have been much better this year.
Well, most of the preseason magazines said if Rutgers could get back to that 500 mark this year, it would be huge for the program and, of course, for recruiting. Do you think they have a realistic chance to do that?
No, I think that went out the window when they lost to Eastern Michigan in the second week of the season. They really need to get that victory. I do think though that even that was a high bar for them to clear. 2-10 last year. Still have no depth at really a lot of the key positions on the field. I mean, I thought going into the year that if they could go 4-8 with a couple of victories, in the Big Ten, that would be very good. I think they could do that still. Certainly, they're three wins now. They still have Maryland, which I think, now they've moved that game to Piscataway instead of Yankee Stadium. That's a winnable game for them. So if they can get that, and suddenly you double your win total from last year, hey, that to me is showing people that you're heading in the right direction.
Well, Coach Ash is in his second season, big rebuilding job, as we all know, but he's in such a talent-rich recruiting area. Is he starting to keep some of that Jersey and East Coast talent at home?
A little bit. It's been tough. His first recruiting class actually was really good. I mean, they had a couple 4-star kids from Jersey. He came in and held it together despite the results. I think it's been a little harder now because he is recruiting off his record, and last year was tough. And a lot of those recruits, were sitting in the stadium for 78-0, and saw it firsthand. And then that chases people away. So I think it's been a little harder based on that. You're right. It is a very talent-rich state, but even when Greg Schiano, who's sort of been, it's the yardstick for anybody who's going to be here, even when he was here, he was only getting, 10, 11 of the top 50 kids from New Jersey to stay. So it's just been a steep hill for anybody to climb. I think you'd have to say that Chris Ash is, somewhere at the bottom of the mountain trying to scrape his way up, but at least he did have that first good recruiting class. Yeah,
it's going to be tough, but do you think he is going to be a guy that gets his 4 or 5 years to turn that thing around?
I think, yeah, absolutely. There's any question. I mean, the Patrick Hobbs, the athletic director, is all in. He recognizes the problem with, how it wasn't just that he was trying to, the cupboard was empty, certainly, but it was also that they were, not all publicity for it, but we're facing NCAA questions. There was an investigation. There were problems. Kids got arrested. And all this stuff was just kind of a shadow over the program. So, he had, in some ways, his rebuilding job was a little harder than even Jeff Brom at Purdue because Brom didn't have to deal with all this stuff. So I think that they're committed to him, and next year to me is going to be a big year because the schedule is more manageable. Now you're in your third year. These are most of your play. This is your system. I think that's when you start looking at, all right, can this team go 6-6? Can 7-5? Can it really turn the corner in a meaningful way? And I certainly think he'll get the chance for that and beyond that.
With us here in our visitors segment today, as we talk a little Rutgers football, see what kind of a team they're bringing in Saturday to the Big House, is a columnist Steve Politi from the Newark Star Ledger. Steve, Michigan leads the series 2-1, and if you're a Michigan or Rutgers fan, I'm sure you remember the first time these two teams played. And I still think back in that game, Steve, it was like Rutgers won the Big Ten championship when they beat Michigan there in Piscataway. Right. I mean, that was one crazy celebration, wasn't it? Yeah. And some people on Twitter, some national guys, they're like, "Oh, look at Michigan's record." If Rutgers beats Michigan, it's going to be that kind of celebration. It doesn't matter what Michigan's record is, and you have to remember there are people who honestly thought that putting Rutgers in the Big Ten was some sort of massive disgrace that they wouldn't be able to compete against anybody, that it was like they're bringing down the brand of the Big Ten. So, to win that game, to win it in prime time, to win it how they wanted, dramatic fashion, the fans stormed the field. It was really a great scene. And that's sort of been by far the high point for the Scarlet Knights in the Big Ten so far. And obviously the two programs have gone in different directions since then. Well, this Saturday, Rutgers, as we've mentioned, rides in on a 2-game winning streak. And we know they're facing a Michigan team reeling after getting just blown up in Happy Valley. So I guess it depends how you look at it. Either this is going to be a down Michigan team or a ticked off one. Either way, I've got to think Rutgers thinks if they can shut this Michigan offense down, which a lot of times shuts itself down, that they can hang around and maybe have a chance in this thing, Steve.
I'm sure that's how they're looking at it. What would concern me is that they gave up more than 200 yards rushing to Purdue, which is not exactly the league's best rushing team. I think that's got to be their biggest concern, because I for all the problems with quarterbacks and offense that Michigan has, I have no doubt that they're going to be able to run the ball on Rutgers. So what that means, I guess, going forward is Rutgers going to be able to find even a little bit of offense against that Michigan defense to score. I think that's going to be a very big challenge if they can't pass the football. So they're going to have to show me something that I haven't seen here in the next few weeks for me, in the last few weeks for me to buy in on their ability to pull off this big upset.
I mean, you've seen Michigan this year, and you've seen the offense struggles. We know it's. I still think it's a good defense. Penn State's just an elite, very talented team.
Yep.
And
it's only one Saquon Barkley.
Well, exactly. He and Trace McSorley. That's they've got just so much talent. The skill positions. They are a very good football team, and they proved that to us on Saturday night. But you know what Rutgers can do too. But do you think they've shown enough that they can come in here and be competitive with Michigan?
Competitive, yeah. I could see them in the first quarter, first half, closer than Michigan fans would like to see. Again, it's just the being competitive versus versus having a chance to win in the fourth quarter. I don't see that, but I do. I mean, I would be very surprised if this game is anything resembling what happened a year ago, which was really one of the more embarrassing moments in recent Rutgers football history, which is the perfect storm. Have that team come here and have Michigan fans essentially celebrating in the end zone over the score that just really got out of hand. I think Rutgers is past that. Certainly, I don't think Michigan is as good as the last year's team either. So I think this would be Rutgers could get out of this building with a victory if they only lose by 2 touchdowns, in my mind, for where they are.
Well, it's homecoming in Ann Arbor, so there's going to be a sellout, maybe a few unhappy campers in the stands after the Penn State game. Weatherman says, at least right now, good football weather, dry and in the 50s. We all know here that can change. And it's a big game. Rutgers wants to continue the upswing. Michigan needs to get back on track, so it should be interesting. My guest today has been columnist Steve Politi from the Newark Star Ledger. Steve, thanks for taking the time to join us, and we look forward to another visit next year.
Anytime. Thanks, Mike.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap up this Rutgers Visitors Edition of The Michigan Man here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, nothing new on the injury front from earlier this week. Chase Winovich has not been officially ruled out of action for Saturday. He is day-to-day, so we will wait until Saturday and see if he is ready to go. Here are some of our game day notes for this year's homecoming matchup. The first meeting between these teams was on October 4th of 2014, and as Steve and I discussed, it was Rutgers' biggest win to date since joining the Big Ten, 26-24. It set off a victory celebration, the likes of which they still talk about in Jersey. Last year, Michigan destroyed Rutgers 78-0 in Piscataway. Coach Chris Ash is in his second year and has a record of 5-14. They were 2-10 overall last season, 0-9 in the Big Ten. Their last bowl appearance was in the 2014 Quick Lane Bowl, a 40-21 win over North Carolina. It is a homecoming for Rutgers quarterback Giovanni Ricino, who played his prep ball at Warren De La Salle. And remember, bring your rain gear again for this Saturday's game, 50% chance of rain. The weatherman says temps will be in the 50s, again with that 50% chance of rain, and we'll be playing the game under overcast skies. Thankfully, no monsoon weather like our last home game is in the forecast. Thanks again to Steve Politi from NewJersey.com and the Newark Star Ledger for joining us today. Next week, we get ready for another night game in the Big House as Minnesota and PJ Fleck come to town. On Tuesday's Game Day show, my guest will be Wolverine.com editor Chris Balas. On Thursday's Visitors Edition, Golden Gophers radio play-by-play voice Mike Grimm will stop by for a visit. So make sure you come back next week for all of that. It has been a tough week for Michigan football. The hangover from the Penn State game took more than a few days to shake for most of us, but now it's time to get back in the big house and get to work. As Jim Harbaugh said on Monday, he wants his team to understand there is so much to play for, not only this week, but in the next 5 weeks. So let's keep our daubers up and get after it this week. That will do it for another Visitors Edition of the show. I thank you for listening, and make sure you tell your friends and family about the show. Our free show app is available from the Google and iTunes stores, and you can also listen on iHeart, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Wolverine Sports Radio. If you get the show from iTunes, please take a moment to rate or review the program. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Come on, Michigan fans, we're 5-2, it's homecoming, and we get to spend another day watching what we love, Michigan football. And I can't wait. Have a great Wolverine weekend, everyone. Until next week, take care. And as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!